All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with the Redefining the Modern Workplace session. We've got a few people here today, but before we dive into that, just a little bit of housekeeping. Um, this is an interactive session, so we do have everybody muted. But if you would like, please feel free to submit any questions to the Q&A, and we'll be sure to respond to them as we can. So getting started, I am Jason McKenry. I'm one of CDI's solutions architects, specializing in VDI and EUT solutions. I've got a few other gentlemen here with me today. Preston, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Preston Stover. I'm the practice lead for our B practice at CDI. This is pretty much all things VMware, Citrix, Microsoft virtualization.
All right, Chris.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Chris Bocci. I help lead an advisory practice within Citrix that supports engagement with executive teams to help them both embrace and understand employee experience as part of their business strategy.
Awesome. And John.
Hi, my name is John Scott from VMware. I manage our Anywhere Workspace lead, or I'm the lead for our Anywhere Workspace solution, which is a combination of 3 of our franchises within VMware. And I cover the role globally.
All right. All right, so to get things started, get the conversation rolling, I have kind of a general question just to lead in here. And we're kind of framing a lot of things up this way, but traditionally the workplace, as employees know it, has been driving into the office, sitting in the cubicle, and really working at that machine, that's sitting there. Sometimes there's remote access or things like that, but the workplace is that location. How are you guys seeing that kind of change over the past year, both for the employee as well as for the IT staff that has to support them?
Great.
Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, certainly. I'll jump in. I think there's obviously a lot been said about the strong case for the great remote work experiment, and that people can indeed work outside of an office and be effective. But I would say that one of the if I were to just point on something that probably hasn't been talked about enough, is that the last year has unwound a lot of cultural bias within organizations to how effective employees can be outside of an office. For years of work with different leadership teams, a lot of different organizations. When you peel back the layers, one of the things that held back having a more hybrid workforce even prior to this pandemic was could people really advance in an organization? Could you have a remote executive, and how would the organization perceive that? And I think that's one of the things that we've seen, change, quite a bit, amongst leadership teams, and talking with HR leaders about culture.
All right.
Yeah, if I could maybe add to that, I think we've seen, if you think about the question, there was the old environment used to be that physical environment, which we've somewhat lost. And then I think, Chris touched on the cultural component, which has really been an important aspect of how we've all transitioned through this. And then there's also that technology and putting all 3 of those together. And I think, we all had certain gauges of time, but I think everyone's come to accept that, this is now most customers' new distributed workforce, and really going forward, it has to be a hybrid era we're about to go into.
Yeah, well, and I think what's interesting is the IT is obviously wrestling with that, but the employees understand that too. And I mean, what we're seeing, at least from CDI's end, is that there's a shift in what the employees are expecting, of IT and the organization overall, to deliver. I mean, kind of in that light, what do you guys think, or how do you kind of quantify the new expectations that employees have, both as we're still dealing with the end of COVID and kind of going into the post-COVID world?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one because I think you're hitting on something super important. In working with a lot of IT leaders, I think one of the things that very quickly became apparent was they can't rely on a lot of the traditional means they had to connecting and understanding, trying to gauge, how are we doing with the workforce? Are we meeting their needs? Traditionally, IT tends to, a lot of IT organizations rely pretty heavily on help desk tickets. Am I having a problem? Well, I might see a rise in my help desk tickets. But the problem with that, and especially now when we're trying to figure out more about, okay, is my workforce, do they have what they need to do their best work? Are they, do they have, the tools, the services they need? What that's created is, they might not actually be able to see that from help desk tickets because there's something called the watermelon SLA. Is a colleague of mine, Brandon Schaub, within our Citrix's own IT organization said, and it's when you tend to look at help desk ticket data, things might look green at the outside, but when you start to peel that back, there's actually a lot of red underneath that, and that's where some of the pain might be in the workforce, and that's what we call the silent sufferers. People who might be too frustrated. Maybe they're not getting the tools that they need to work effectively remotely, and that's what's presented a bigger challenge for IT, and it's really inspired a desire to really do things differently.
And I think the expectations really from employees now is working from home is no longer a perk. It's part of a job requirement for them. They all expect access to all the apps they've used to use, all the business tools they might need to get their job done. And I think for a lot of the technology decision makers, they're looking at cost reduction and things like that, but also integrated solutions on where they can, start to bring these worlds all together.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chris, you're talking about, tool sets that help kind of peel back the layers and kind of provide some visibility. John, you're talking about some, some kind of more employee-facing tools, things that, enable them with new capabilities and new new abilities. What are some of those tools that you see customers bringing to bear to address those needs?
Certainly. I mean, I can jump in here. Rather than a tool, I think it's a different, different processes. I'll give you some examples. We did some research over the past year, speaking with IT and HR leaders across, across the globe in a lot of different industries, as well as, fielding a survey to 800 HR IT leaders. And one of the things that came out, trying to surface some of the best practices and behaviors of, companies that deliver great employee experiences. And one of the things that rose to the top there was those that are doing this well, have, greater empathy, for the workforce. And what does that mean? It means you're a better listener. And those that are doing this well have developed a more effective listening function. So when you think about the anatomy of an effective listening function for an organization, are they getting that top level signal from the organization to give them an idea? Okay, here's where a problem might be. Like this group of employees doesn't have what they need to collaborate effectively. You start to peel back the layers to, understand, okay, here's where a problem, might be. And that will give rise to, say, more focused surveys or focus groups to say, okay, now I get a better understand, it's, I understand there's a problem with collaboration or access to information. Is it, for customer facing work? Is it internal? The companies start to, better understand, okay, where, exactly is my challenge, and then, that gives, brings them down to be able to do effective testing with employees. So now, actually, creating, whether it be prototypes, things that, people can react to, learn from, and then, roll out and then, create a feedback mechanism. I mean, that was like a 45-second interview overview of what an effective listening function looks like. But one of the so as just in summary, one of the greatest tools isn't necessarily a tool so much as a process, for companies to better understand, what are the needs of the workforce.
Yeah, I would maybe add to that. And one of the themes I probably talk a lot about just day to day is things have changed, and our customers have a lot of older legacy tools out there. And as they look at their environment and how to bring the employees back into the office, they need to rethink maybe some of the tools they've been using traditionally to manage that overall entire environment. And I think a big part is considering the employee and their entire employee life cycle, literally from signing on from the offer and being accepted and brought into the company really at day one as soon as they sign on, and then considering what that experience is like through their entire journey as an employee there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I think this kind of ties in, when we talk about, listening and having that empathy for, for the users and really kind of opening ourselves up to new ideas around that. One of the common pushbacks that, and this is, a story as old as IT, anytime we talk about new technologies or new capabilities, it always comes back to the conversation around, security and compliance. How are you guys seeing kind of those two worlds, collide or mesh, and really, kind of CIT departments addressing, both of those at the same time?
Yeah, certainly. I might, there are a couple of different ways you can answer this. One, I would point out, one of the things, if you looked over the years at, say a concept like zero trust, and, as companies, are, putting some of the principles, underlying zero trust, around encryption, and so forth, that it actually opens up when you look at a security strategy, when done right, and taking a look at, say, implementing zero trust in an organization, it actually opens up a better employee experience, which is actually very counterintuitive because we always, as you put, these things always feel like they're a tension with at one another. If I want to improve the experience, I'm going to have to drop security, or vice versa. But if, when done right, and say, I keep harping on zero trust, and the reason is, well, if you start to put that into action, you can actually open up, by better securing your data, open up greater device diversity, create better logon and passwordless systems and single sign-on, things that can actually improve the employee experience, help them be more productive, open up more flexibility, to work where they want on what they want, because we've the traditional notions of firewall around our offices, that's gone. And if you start to actually pursue a zero trust strategy, well, when done right, you're going to open up a better employee experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think managing that whole distributed workforce is a challenge. We used to have castle walls kind of around the entire network and previously, and now it's like all of our end users are all out at a Burning Man concert. They're everywhere, all over the desert, and we've got to reach out to all of them. And still, in that type of environment, how do we apply policies, right? It becomes more difficult, and ensure that there's security in place. And then, are we offering any device that they would like to bring to the office? Is it corporate owned, or is it a BYOD device or personal device? And then there's a lot of challenges that have been really added into our application access, and whether we're going into public or private data centers, how we're routing through the cloud. So there's a lot to take in and think about when, kind of covering, and the various operating systems, the list kind of goes on.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great way to kind of frame it up in that, all of a sudden we're dealing with this distributed workforce. But the other end of that is interesting as well, where we're also starting to see more and more of a push towards, getting out of the physical data center and getting into the cloud. I mean, that was a trend before, but now, a lot of people, coming out of the whole COVID issue are really looking at that as a strategy. And we can get into all kinds of conversations around, security around that. But I guess the core question is, how is that also helping us kind of deliver a better end user experience and help kind of meet those user expectations with SaaS and cloud services?
Yeah, you're absolutely obviously, cloud has been on a meteoric, trajectory for quite some time. But with regard to, employee technology and end user computing, especially over, to your point over the last year, I point to flexibility and resiliency. I don't think there are a lot of businesses that, go to cloud for, to run workloads in the cloud, long-term perpetual workloads. I mean, you're not gonna, necessarily save money that way, but you will get some of the other, more notable benefits of cloud, like flexibility or say resiliency. For us, cloud underpinned, how Citrix put a lot of people back to work after offices had to close, just a little over a year ago. We had numerous examples where, we were spinning up environments, whether it be connecting to, desktops, physical desktops at the office or, cloud desktops where, you had to do, tens of thousands of workers. There are numerous examples of tens of thousands of workers, over the course of a weekend. And, you just can't do things like that in a most organizations aren't able to do that with their own, data centers. And just an example where, say flexibility, um, um, comes into play as well as resiliency.
Yeah, and I agree. The flexibility going to the cloud, I think it's a major initiative for many customers. I think the one challenge we probably get from it is, if I look at, we've ramped up so quickly, and customers are in that rethink stage. Everyone kind of burst. I mean, I know that VMware is an organization. We were about to kick off our VMworld internally, and we literally flipped it on Friday night over to the Monday type of thing. And our entire organization became a remote organization. So we were able to adjust, but with that comes, some bursting challenges. And I think there's time to, we're at an inflection point with a lot of our customers to rethink kind of what have we done, and is this sustainable, or do we look at a further kind of mapped out process as we go forward?
Okay. John, you were hitting on before, the new distributed workforce on a variety of devices, BYOD devices, company assets that are out in the wild, like you talked about. What are maybe a couple key technical requirements that you see that are, mega important to address that distributed workforce and those variety of devices out there?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we saw a lot with was VPN, right? People, put VPN into play, and it's worked well, but that is pulling kind of one of those legacy style solutions usually forward a little bit. And I think it can relate in some poor performance. There's kind of a hairpin effect. If you think about user making the request, it goes, hits the data center, has to go back out maybe to a cloud specific or a private or public cloud or private or public data center internally, and then it its way back again. And there's a chance of it creating a bottleneck. It can hang, and it just generally slows down performance. And again, we had to scale for maybe people had it for 10% of their organization, so they had to go to 90 or even 100%. And so moving that all forward can create a lot of cost and complexity to maintain and bring up to speed for that big, large group that's really had to adjust to working from home.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, as we're focusing on all those bits and bytes, that came into play, recently with COVID and post-COVID here, hopefully. What are maybe some key things tied to the employee experience that maybe IT is commonly overlooking? Maybe just a couple of those that you hear about and see every day now.
Yeah, certainly. So, I would, first, part of the research we did, identified a set of principles, organizations could follow, refocusing on progress, and putting, an individual and employee's personal progress at the, heart of an organization's EX efforts. And why that is critical is, oftentimes, maybe we can talk about it in terms of some of the personas. Sometimes, IT organizations have been creating, personas over the years. And if you look at them, um, they tend to say, let's just say like Sarah from sales, and she's a mobile user, and she uses X, Y, and Z applications. They tend to stop at maybe a little bit about the user, and then the tools that they use. Well, you know, probably one of the more important things that we've seen is the need, necessity to take a look at not just the tools somebody's using. And if you're familiar with the concept by Clay Christensen, the jobs to be done. So rather than just thinking about the tools that they use, what are their jobs to be done? What is that individual looking to accomplish? Because a lot of us, none of us wake up every morning and think, oh, I'm a PowerPoint user, I'm an Excel user. No, we think about connecting, engaging with customers, selling a service, doing some sort of, pipeline generation. We think about, certain, activities or things that we're looking, to accomplish. And so, what that means, and what, that is, mean in terms of a change for IT leadership is to, start to, think more deeply about, how they, refine their personas. And actually, I'm going to go back to something John mentioned earlier, and this helps illustrate this point. Organizations historically have looked at that employee life cycle at a company, and I think what's happened over this, especially over this last year, is it's important not just to think about that life cycle of an employee, but to zoom into their employees' daily journeys. So what are the experiences and things that my employees are looking to accomplish, every single day, and then starting to refine and create personas that reflect not just the tools they use, but what they were looking to accomplish.
And John, what a lot of these employees are looking, to accomplish and access is a variety of applications and a variety of different networks. Whether they're cloud hosted, uh, uh, provider hosted, on-prem hosted. How do we deal with security now with these different edge networks? In front of our target resources.
So I think we have probably a layered approach, and that's we're talking more and more about what we refer to as the anywhere workforce, and that's really thinking about what type of employee is it, what are the multiple modes that they'll be working from, what type of flexible work style, that employee life cycle, and putting them first, and then security really is at the distributed edge, right? Capturing, I think Chris mentioned those zero trust needs, controlling the endpoints. And then another key component, I think, for us is going to be around automation, kind of managing those outcomes. We can really help reduce those help desk calls, single sign-on to all those apps. We can have intelligence and analytics to detect, certain things such as battery usage and failure points. And I think we start to bring those things together and offer more of a holistic hybrid solution for our customers. Kind of that, as I guess I mentioned a little bit earlier, one of those integrated style solutions that really starts to address multiple needs for the end user, but also that meets the needs for IT.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, as IT is putting all these controls and these mechanisms in place to deliver that employee experience, what are maybe a couple different ways that IT can monitor and measure and kind of quantify an improved employee experience or a consistently good or excellent employee experience?
Yeah, good question. I think John, gave a good answer for part of that. What I would add just to help support, this discussion is exactly, okay, what what are the behaviors and activities of an organization delivering an employee experience, and exactly, as you just put it, measuring and analyzing devices and apps to improve employee experience. That's actually a very important behavior, and I'll just quickly run through why. So when you looked at the very mature organizations, in the index we created, and compare them to the organizations that were not, delivering as great of an employee experience. We started to see a separation in some of the behaviors, and just very quickly, pointing to okay, what made for a more what was more likely to be happening at an organization with a more mature employee experience practice. Well, they were over 60 percentage points higher likely to be measuring, analyzing experience, the devices and apps that people use, thinking about and using specific employee personas or segments, utilizing employee journey mapping, not just to focus on, that entire employee experience, but also thinking about that daily journey and utilizing iterative processes like design thinking. So in other words, when you looked at the advanced organizations, they were far more likely to be employing a set of human-centric empathy-driven, activities, of which, to your point, and as we were just talking about, measuring and analyzing experience is an important part of that.
Mm-hmm. Wrap-up question, kind of for both you guys. Historically, for the remote workforce, to work from anywhere, any device workforce, we've used application desktop virtualization. How have you seen that, John, be emphasized with COVID and post-COVID world?
Phil, I guess we've seen really an explosion in that space, right? It's been a lot of benefits to our customers who already kind of had it in place. They were able to really, supersize their environment and give those folks the access they needed right away. So I think the good thing was it was already in place for a lot of customers, regardless probably, whose product they were using. And I know both of us really tried to come out with creative solutions to make it as easy as possible for customers. We've done a lot of work in school boards and try to keep kids in school, and we worked with some of the telcos that provide connectivity options. And so it wasn't just that VDI type of play. We were able to use some of our other user endpoint management products to really kind of help in those environments. So I gotta say, from a vendor perspective, it felt really good being able to help our customers through this time this year. Certainly they went through dramatic challenges, but it was terrific to be in IT and technology and really actually do something that made a difference on a daily basis for our customers and get them back to work.
Yep. And Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, I would echo everything that John just said about just feeling good about some of the the different individuals and organizations that you're helping. But when we're talking about app desktop virtualization, those from a human perspective are stepping stones. From an IT perspective, certainly they help with simplification, but from a employee perspective, you're able to open up the opportunity to deliver them a simpler experience. Make a lot of people have had to adapt their lives to work, and so many of the different situations that individuals were in, made IT organizations heroes. To be able to offer somebody flexibility, who might be trying to teach a student, their kids who are students in the next room, and be able to connect into the office to a desktop or an application, and for us to be able to bring and help simplify that for an individual when they're dealing with so much noise in their lives. It it's what's the best way to say, it's been an exciting time, and we're very much enjoying the chance to work with organizations as they rethink work and what the role of the office, and more importantly, not the office, in the future work for them.
Right. Well, fantastic answers. We're going to wrap it up here. Jason, you got some final words?
No, I mean, thank you guys. It's definitely some fresh perspective, and kind of different twist on looking at things, from, through the lens of the user. I think, as IT, we get sucked into looking at systems too much, and it's definitely a cool twist on things. So thank you guys for shaking it up for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.